Welcome back. It's episode 2 of Everything You Love with me, Rob Arnold. Welcome back. Thanks for watching. Glad you're here. Thank you for watching episode 1 if you did. And if you didn't, check that out too. It introduces you to what I got going on here. We'll bring you up to speed on everything. And I just think it's enjoyable. Been really gratifying to see all the fantastic feedback I've been getting from people on it. How much people are enjoying that. And it's going to prompt me to make more. So that's what we're doing here today. I have a confession to make though. And that is, I'm figuring this out as I go, making these videos like this. It's been a lot of fun so far, and I'm learning, making mistakes, just normal stuff. And one of the mistakes I made was that I filmed too much. I chose 20 questions for episode 1, something like that, out of the dozens and dozens I received, thinking that I'll just chip away at these and start here. Anyways, at the end of answering those questions, it had been like 2.5 hours of content. So I started whittling it down and decided that I needed to make 2 episodes. And therefore, a bunch of these questions that I'm going to answer today are from the first session that you haven't seen. Why even mention that, right? Why don't I just pretend they're part of episode 2? Well, I'm wearing the Elite World War III t-shirt that I wore in episode 1, and these questions you're going to see answered today. So instead of having you scratch your head, I'm just being upfront. By the way, did you like that shirt? If you did, you can get it at robarnoldworld.com, along with the World War III EP from my band, The Elite. It's in my online shop. Check it out. They're currently 25% off. So yeah, again, today here on Everything You Love, episode 2, I'm just going to be answering questions. Got a bunch of ones that were left over from the initial filming session, as I mentioned, and some additional stuff. But first, before we get started quickly, I wanted to take a second to thank everyone who's signed on so far as one of my patrons, which you can do through patreon.com/RobArnoldWorld. It's a chance for you to pre-order my upcoming solo record with Andals Herrick by making an investment in the production of the record. If you'd like to be a part of that and help out, because I need it, you could do that at patreon.com/RobArnoldWorld, and you also read all about what I'm talking about here and what's going on. Again, thanks to everybody that's joined on so far, and go ahead and, after this video, head over and check it out and see if you'd like to consider it. With my shameless self-promotion out of the way, let's get right into it and answer some questions. Alrighty, time for another. Horror Nights has inquired as to where my favorite place to perform with Chimera is. That's hard to say. I really have a lot of places that I enjoy playing. In America, ones that come to mind, I always love playing Florida, Texas, California. I don't know if it's the weather in those places or what, but a lot of good vibes. Worldwide, I always like playing Australia. Hate the travel there, it takes forever, obviously, but it's super cool. Great shows there. But if I had one place that sticks out in my mind, it's the Download Festival in Donington, England, and the time we played it in 2007. I've heard there was 70,000, 80,000, even 90,000 people there in the crowd on the main stage where we played. We played probably like 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and it was just insane to see that amount of people. And I often think about that because if I could go back now and do that again, I would have such a different outlook on it. I think that I would soak that in, like, look at all these people, and check out some of this footage here. Look at all those people. It's insane. I would be like, oh my gosh, and just soak that in. But at the time, I didn't. At the time, I was just on a mission. And not even just this show, where that was probably the biggest show we ever played, or in front of the most amount of people. I was just on this mission with every show to spread the word of Chimera. So I never really stopped and smelled the roses. It was just this mission, like I said. But now, after I've had some time, a little bit older, a little bit wiser, if I had that opportunity to do that again, I would really soak it in and really be grateful for that, and just enjoy the day, enjoy the moment, enjoy playing the chords and seeing people sing along. So that was a killer show. Donington, England, 2007. It was our third time playing the Download Festival. Just a great festival. I'm sure a lot of you watching this right now have been there. So, cool. Okay. Marathon Man Productions has asked, how much footage do you guys, Todd Bell, have sitting around? Do you think another Chimera DVD or movie will ever get made? Personally, I've always been interested in how the cycle for the self-titled record went. The dehumanizing process is one of my favorite films ever for any genre. Would love to see another. Also, AJ Prentice 91 had a very similar question. He or she says, since we got a really in-depth look at the creation of Impossibility, Resurrection, and the Infection via those awesome documentaries, it would be really cool to get more insight into the creation of Pass Out and definitely the self-titled. So I coupled those together because they're pretty much asking the same thing. There probably is more footage that Todd has. I mean, the guy filmed constantly and just had tapes and tapes, but you put together the best stuff from that, obviously, and directors and editors make the decisions on what's going to make the cut and what doesn't. But let me take this opportunity to give big props to Todd Bell, Garrett Zunt, Nick Lacheski. They're the main guys in the Tektronic Rocket Society that have made those movies for us, and just what a blessing it's been to have had those movies made for us and about us. Because everybody in Chimera, we grew up on the Pantera videos, the Metallica videos, and that was awesome. Then to have those for us now, kind of at the time, there was just cameras around. We didn't think anything of it. We were just doing our thing. But in hindsight now, it's so awesome to have those movies. And the connection that people were able to make with us as a band, to get to know us and our personalities and what things are like behind the scenes, is awesome. Just the fact that that exists. So thank you to Todd, Garrett, Nick, all the help, all those guys. We appreciate it. So back to the question, there's really nothing for Pass Out, nothing about the making of the album. And I think the reason for that is that I would say bands rarely document the making of their first album for a lot of reasons. One is that they're caught up in the moment. They just got the record deal. Lots of new people are coming into their lives. Managers, attorneys, booking agents. Things are changing quickly for them. Perhaps I'm describing Chimera's experience, but I imagine this happens for everyone. But we're whisked out to California to make a record. All of a sudden we're living in Los Angeles in a big studio doing all this cool stuff or whatever. And you just don't stop to think that, oh, we should be filming all this. Or we should have a camera crew in here to document the process. We just didn't think about it at all. So there is no footage or very little of the making of that record. Now, when it came time to make Impossibility Reason, obviously, I'm sure Mark was thinking about that right away, that, hey, we got to do this. And Todd Bell, we all went to high school together. And so Todd was around all the time, and he was doing film at that time, or maybe had just gotten out of film school or still in, I don't know. But he's like, hey, let's just start documenting the process of you guys making this record. And the rest is history, because then he followed us through our career for years after that, on the road, in the studio, across many albums. And the dehumanizing process was made. And again, that's so awesome that that exists, that timestamp in our history that'll be there forever. But then the self-titled came around, and you think we would have learned how important it would be to film. But thinking about this, when we were coming off the Impossibility tour, it was a whirlwind, and I feel like now that when we got done with that cycle, that the band kind of wanted to decompress and unwind a bit. But I was amped up on this vision I had of what I wanted the next Chimera album to be like, at least what I was going to try to do. And I remember just getting home from that touring cycle and wanting to start right away and calling the guys and being like, let's get right back into the studio. Obviously, the transition was happening, or it just happened with Andals to Tally, but I just wanted to get started. I wanted to get going on that. And so because of that, I think we kind of jumped the gun on some of the planning for the record, like extracurricular things like bringing in a film crew and setting all that up to make it happen. So I just kind of think the thought went to the wayside, and we just started making the album and pressed forward, and before you know it, things were happening, boom, 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 booking studio time to mix, all this, and filming wasn't even an afterthought. It just didn't even happen. So unfortunately, there is no footage that I'm aware of for the making of the self-titled record, and that's a bummer because I wish there was. And then in terms of the touring cycle, I'm sure there's live footage out there, but no real documentary or anything like that. And it wasn't until Resurrection that we learned that lesson and documented that process. And then there's quite a bit for the Infection as well. And I can't even recall how much was there for the Age of Hell, but you know, since it was the age of hell. No, never mind. Phineas Maximus 19XX is going to break this up into multi-part questions, since you are one of my guitar heroes who I credit to me picking up the guitar. Thank you, dude. What Chimera record has your favorite guitar riffs you have ever written for the band? 7-string or baritone guitars, which do you prefer more? Who was your favorite band from the Cleveland area to play shows with back in the early days of Chimera? Cheers from Philadelphia. Always love going to Philly. Good times. Favorite guitar riffs for the band? Self-Titled's the first one that comes to mind. I love a lot of the riffs on there. Bloodlust, Everything You Love, Save Ourselves. I remember writing Save Ourselves, putting riffs together for that. Crammed in a hallway, about to go on stage at the Astoria in England, and it was loud in there. I remember like playing the solo to like Matt, where we're crammed back there. I'm like, hey, what do you think of this? Just play open, and then 2, and then 3, whatever. And we were trying to do this like jammed in this little hallway, like right before we're about to go on stage, before they open the door and we head out or whatever. So a lot of cool riffs on there. I like a lot of the Resurrection riffs too. The song Resurrection, Pleasure and Pain has a lot of cool riffs. Although I think Mark wrote a lot of the Pleasure and Pain riffs, but still just fun stuff to play. End It All, love a lot of the riffs from that one. Empire has a lot of cool riffs. So, and it's hard to narrow it down. Yeah, and then 7-string or baritone. Baritone, for people that don't know, is just a longer scale neck. It allows you to use lower tunings without having to get crazy with super heavy gauges or go to a 7th string. Long story short, I always prefer a 6-string. And the main reason is I know all my sweet spots on the guitar. If I hear a riff, I already hear a melody or solo in my head. That's something I've been blessed with. I just hear it instantly. Being able to put it on the guitar, I have to translate it, and that takes a little longer. There's some computation that goes on there or whatever, but I pretty much know the sweet spots. I can hear a riff, I hear the key, I know where my starting point could be, and I can just instantly start playing and improvise. But on a 7-string, for some reason, those boxes, those spots that I know I can jump to no matter what I hear are different. And it's that extra second or two of second guessing it or having to think about it that puts me out of my comfort zone, and I can't improvise as easily. And so it just frustrates me. So which do I prefer though, a baritone or a 7-string? I remember we used baritone 6 strings to kind of avoid 7 strings in the early days, like for the Split video. I'm playing I think it's a Viper, an LTD Viper, maybe a VB 400 in that video. It's definitely some sort of Viper baritone, but I remember just dropping that to drop A rather than using a 7-string so that I could keep my sweet spots, but there was just issues with that. We ended up going straight to the 7s and just using those for the entire Pass Out of Existence record touring cycle. I haven't used the baritone since, but generally I prefer 6 strings over 7 strings. I like the cut that they provide through the mix, live or in the studio, higher tunings. I just prefer. I'm glad we have all that stuff on the lower tunings and 7 strings. It's cool, part of the history and all that, but my preference is a higher tuned 6 string. I prefer the drop C tuning. And finally, what's my favorite band from the Cleveland area from back in the day? It'd have to be Switched, Ben Shiggle's band. They had their early incarnation was Short Bus, I think, right before that Jim was in, and it was Not So Blah, then Short Bus, then Switched, and we recruited Jim from Switched to join Chimera, and then they went on. They got signed to Immortal. That first record of theirs, Subject to Change, is incredible. I recommend you check it out. Ben's a phenomenal singer. Ben is the producer from Spider Studios that did a lot of the Chimera records. And we just had a fun time touring with those guys. Most of us were just from Strongsville, Ohio, same little city. Ben's mom was the attendance lady at Strongsville High School. Always read me passes because I was notoriously late back then. So we just had a great time. We were just all cut from the same cloth and playing shows across the country, debauchery, laughs, fun times, just a lot of great memories. All right, Hammer Punched asked, how did you land the gig on Farm Club? Are all those chicks in the crowd hired to do that dancing, or is it just oddly awesome it happened? Looks cool and weird as still to this day. For those of you that don't know, Farm Club was a a USA Network show back in the early 2000s that would host performances from bands, and they would have like a baby band or a band that was looking for a deal on as part of the show too that would open the show. And we and another band called Minus were chosen with the help of a great friend, Marcy Jacobson. She helped get us on the show, and it was totally cool. The bill we played that day was with Mandy Moore and No Doubt, Incubus, Eve 6, Method Man and Redman, and it was just surreal. So it was our first live TV performance or anything, and I mean, it's crazy dressing rooms and cameras and all that and everything. So yeah, when we get out to actually play, the place is packed. I think that they like invite like just fans that want to come out or whatever, but certainly those girls in the front row were extras. And I also remember thinking, well, that's weird, but it was cool, whatever. But yeah, seeing it in the video now that they don't know like what's going on with the song. I mean, their sense of timing is good. They get back into it after we changed time there in Dead Inside. But that whole thing was really cool. Everybody should go check that out. Just search Kimura Farm Club on YouTube and take a blast of the past and see when we were just young lads, very green, and no idea what the future had to hold. Okay, Red Otteson would like to know what it was like to work with Chrys Barnes. So I actually got a few 6 Feet Under questions, and which I think is totally awesome. I love that people know of the Undead record, which is the record that I made with 6 Feet Under back in 2011. So it's always special when people mention that record and acknowledge it, because I'm so proud of it. It's got killer riffs. It's a reuniting with Kevin Talley for me because he played drums on the record. Just a totally awesome record. But anyways, what made it so cool was that Chrys Barnes, it's widely known, is my second favorite singer ever. My first favorite is James Hetfield. I don't think Chrys would mind being second to that. I'll tell you, Mark's up in there, probably third. Back before I joined Kimura, my band Sanctum with Andals would play shows with Skipline in the area, which was Mark and Jim's band, Mark Hunter. And I always looked up to Mark, and so I've played with some of my favorite singers, and that's an incredible thing. At any rate, Cannibal Corpse's The Bleeding, and then 6 Feet Under's Haunted record, two back-to-back records that, in my opinion, in Chrys's prime, had such an enormous influence on me, my style, my playing, just some of my favorite records ever. And one day, or not one day, a tour, we were out touring with 6 Feet Under, Kimura was, and Chrys said to me, hey, let's do something sometime. I like your style, whatever. And that was just amazing, totally surreal, like a rock star, the movie rock star moment where I was gonna get to jam with one of my idols. So fast forward years later, we end up talking again. He asked me to just send in some material, we could start working on it, and it was just a completely surreal experience getting to make music for this album that I adore with my second favorite singer of all time. And again, just he welcomed me in and just respected me in just a crazy way, and it was totally awesome. But then it came to an abrupt end because of the stress that I was being caused by my exit from Kimura, which was a brutal time period in my life that was just kind of got ugly, and I don't like to think about a lot, but unfortunately at that time a lot of events were causing the walls to close in on me, and I had to pull out of 6 Feet Under. I had to shut off playing and music and touring altogether, and unfortunately that meant letting Chrys down. And he was relying on me. He had put all his faith into me with this new record, and so had Metal Blade Records, and there was a lot riding on it, and the hype surrounding it was big, and it could have been a big thing. And unfortunately I had to back out, and I wasn't able to honor my commitments, and I'll forever regret that. And if you ever see this, Chrys, I'd like to say again how sorry I am. I still listen to the record regularly and couldn't be more proud of it. So unfortunate, but fortunate. We got a sick record out of it that just never really got to see the light of day it deserved to. But I like to continue to talk about it to try to bring light to it, and I recommend everybody check it out. 6 Feet Under, Undead. All right. So what I'm going to do is hop in here. on this new day and continue answering the couple remaining 6 Feet Under questions that were asked. So let's do that. Yadel Guevara. What's up, Yadel? We go way back. Undead 6 Feet Under is a true masterpiece. How did it all come to life? Who joined / met who first? And any side stories from the era? Well, as I described, in 2005, Chimera had toured with 6 Feet Under, but nothing really happened after that. We just talked about it, and that was cool. And then sometime around late 2010, I'd say, somewhere in there, I just got a call or a text from Chrys kind of randomly saying, "Hey, Rob, are you still interested in collaborating on some stuff?" And I was like, "Sure, what do you have in mind?" And he's like, "Well, what about writing for some new 6 Feet Under stuff?" And I was like, "Whoa, okay, yeah, let's just try that." So fast forward a little bit, I just sent him a song, and he did some vocals to it, and we kind of just got started like that. And that song was Psychosis. He said, let's try a couple more. This is me just doing some stuff at my house in Cleveland and sending him stuff down in Tampa, and he would get it and go over to a dude named Chaz's house where Chaz would record all Chris's vocals. Shout out to Chaz, super killer guy, great engineer. Anyways, Chrys would send these songs back like the next day, like within 24 hours, finished with his vocals. It was incredible, and we just laugh about how awesome they were. So I sent him a couple more. The Perverse and Possessed. Psychosis ended up becoming a B-side, or no, it ended up on Unborn. And then The Perverse and Possessed ended up on Unburied, which is like a digital release that Barnes just put out recently, I think, with a bunch of just like leftover tracks from that session, because that whole time period was Barnes just trying to find a bunch of new writers. So it's me, Chrys, and Tally. Steve did a couple solos, all on Undead. Unborn is more of a collection of writers. There's a song from me, some stuff from Ben from Whitechapel, some stuff from Yari from Torture Killer, and then Unburied is a digital release with just, I think, a lot of leftovers from that. So at any rate, after doing those first 3 songs, we're like, okay, let's solidify some stuff. So I had to get involved with Metal Blade, and I ended up signing with Metal Blade to write the record, and we just started fresh. Now we knew it was solidified, and the first song I wrote for Chrys was 18 Days. He sent that back. We knew we had struck gold. We knew we were onto something great. And from there, the songs just kept pouring. And like I said, he'd just send them back to me. The next day finished, I was blown away with how fast. I think he was just thirsty for them. So it was a really good feeling, really cool environment to be writing tunes for this dude I grew up listening to and worshiping his vocals and his bands and stuff. And now I'm writing songs for him. It was surreal. And the material was killer. It was coming out great. So it was just an awesome time. And then, so that's how it kind of came to life. Any side stories? So when I was writing the songs, I was just programming drums to him. And one day he asked me, "Hey, do you have anybody in mind for drums?" Or maybe he said he had somebody, but I said, "What about Tally? We should get him." He's like, "Do you think he'd do it?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I think he'd do it." I called him up. Tally was in right away. He started digesting the material. And Tally came to town for a couple days, and we wrote a couple together. I think we wrote 3 together. I know we wrote Molest Dead together and Missing Victims. I can't remember the third one. What is it, Kev? I can't remember. But that was cool. And then when it came time to tour, we needed a bass player. I said, "What about Matt?" I think Matt at that time had already filled in, maybe for like Lamb of God on bass or something. My memory's a little foggy about all that. But yeah, it was just cool. Mark Lewis and Jason Sukoff were mixing the record, and the tones were cool, and it's just a fun time. And again, an album I'm super proud of. That sucks that it just never really saw the light of day just because I had to leave the band. So it just kind of got swept under the rug. But the people that know about it, I'm glad you know about it. I hope some more people check that out. 18 Days, again, what kind of started it all, killer tune. I will link that right here for you. So check that out after the video. Jay Madison wants to know, how did the process of joining 6 Feet Under come about? Was your writing process for guitar parts different to Chimera? And by the way, Undead was a killer album, definitely one of my faves, and definitely underrated. Again, thank you. The only things I really haven't answered from this is was the writing process different for me? And I'd say totally. I had like a clear vision in mind, a path of what I knew I needed to do, which is kind of like a fun thing to have. With Chimera, it was kind of totally organic. It was ours that we had created from the beginning, and we could just create however we wanted. There was nothing already where 6 Feet Under was already in place, and I was a new guy coming into that. So there was like kind of a structure there that I needed to adhere to. And while 6 Feet Under was like just slow groove death metal and stuff, I wanted to bring a little speed back in there, especially knowing Tally was going to come on board and what Tally's capable of. I still wanted to maintain that groove, and that's what I'm all about anyways. I can't avoid groove. But I kind of had this path I needed to stick to a bit. So just being influenced so much by the Bleeding and 6 Feet Under's first record, Haunted, the riffs just poured out. It came easy, and the fact that Chrys dug it so much it just made it super easy. Also, I was writing in C standard, which was different for me. I've been used to drop C for a long time, but I just consider C standard just like playing an E standard. So you just kind of have to get back to like playing Metallica type power chords again when you get to a standard tuning, except it was lower. It created a lot of cool like low vibe sounds by putting the octave in there as well. So you play a power chord and add the octave. That's what I was calling like the SFU chords. I actually have 4 old videos I made. The quality is not the greatest or whatever, but where I teach 4 6 Feet Under songs and do playthroughs of them. So I'll link those up there in this playlist. You can check those out too. A lot of people ask me to do 6 Feet Under playthroughs. I have 4 of them. I probably won't be doing any more of those, but if you want to check out the 4 I've already done, please do. Carlos Rentiera, so Carlos, says, oh, how was the 2004 Japan tour with In Flames and God Forbid? Super sick. Going to Japan, just eating great food, killer shows, God Forbid, In Flames, great times, good buds, awesome. But how overwhelming was it balancing 6 Feet Under and Chimera back in 2011? Well, as I kind of mentioned, that whole time period was the demise for me in my band life and touring life and everything, as Chimera was falling apart and I wasn't able to balance everything. I wasn't able to hang on and just stick it out with 6 Feet Under. I just was overwhelmed with anxiety. My wife and I think my wife was about to have our first daughter, and I just kind of had to shut the faucet off. It was the only way I could deal with things. And again, unfortunately, I just had to pull out, and I regret that. Well, not regret, you know what I mean. I regret that I had to leave 6 Feet Under. Obviously, I still believe everything happens for a reason. I couldn't imagine life without my baby girl and everything that I've come to do now. So again, everything happens for a reason. It just wish I could have seen that record through and perhaps played those songs live, and it would have been killer. Finally, why didn't I stay in 6 Feet Under, from Pierre Gutierrez. So yeah, I've kind of covered all that. I wasn't really able to just manage everything and handle it because of my leaving. Leaving Chimera was very complicated. Lots of paperwork, lots of bad vibes, lots of lawyer stuff. It crushed me, and it is what it is. But it forced me to say I can't go back out. I can't just go play. I can't just turn that off and go play in 6 Feet Under. There was complications and conflicts of interest, I think, and just kind of got bunk. So yeah, I still don't even really like to talk about it or dive back into it because it just sucks. It's just unfortunate. I wish it would have worked out, especially because it was such a cool thing to be able to do that, you know, to go play with one of your idols. I wish I could have balanced both. Would have been super cool. So I think that is going to just about wrap it up here. I want to thank everybody that stuck around this long through episode 2 here. And a couple things before we go, I wanted to mention that I've made a bunch of other content for people who have made it this far. You're the type of people I want to watch this stuff. Check out my string changing series, where I go through my whole method for changing guitar strings, setting up Floyd Rose float, intonation, just how I take care of my guitars and all that. If you've already seen those, thanks for watching. If you haven't, I want people to know they exist, just because I wish I had those tools growing up, where these cool videos, and maybe it's even more special if it's done by somebody that you dig, you know. So you want to know about my stuff and how I do it, I go into super details about how I take care of my guitars, why I do certain things, and they're really cool. I recommend you check those out. And finally, I've also got a playthrough series going on, where so far I've done 3 Chimera playthrough videos. where I play along to the songs. I plan to do a ton more of those. Got a lot of ideas brewing for those, and I've been getting all your comments from people who want to see certain songs. I've been taking all that into account. But in these playthroughs, it's just watching me play through the songs, seeing one of the creators play through them, and they're not lessons. They're just kind of an up close view. But I think if I had these things when I were young, I remember like watching like quality VHS of Metallica with like binoculars, trying to see what James and Kirk were playing, compare it to like tab books I had, and trying to figure that stuff out, which was a valuable experience in its own. But at the same time, like if I could just sit there and watch James jam through Ride the Lightning or something, how awesome that would be. So I encourage people just to watch the hands and slow it down and do that kind of stuff if you want to learn. So, you know, I'm trying to make this stuff cool just for everybody to enjoy, and I hope you do. I hope you can get something from it. Again, thanks for watching. Follow me on the socials, Rob Arnold World, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Patreon, worldwide. Thank you. See you next time on episode 3. Oh, wait. I suppose I need to give you one more taste of my new album with Andals Herrick to sweeten the deal, as I hope you'll consider being a patron. So, without any further ado, please enjoy a taste of Ghost Roaster from my new album with Andals, here on Everything You Love.